Going into Euro 2024, you'd have to forgive Dutch, Netherlands, or Holland fans for being a bit concerned about their team. Not necessarily Ronald Koeman, but as you know, Coop Miners and obviously De Jong came into this tournament with injuries to the point where they cannot participate at this competition. So people might have been thinking, what's going on in the midfield? If I'm honest with you, Tijjani Reijnders has been one of the best central midfielders, in my opinion, during the Euro 2024. And he has, filled the void left by those injured players I mentioned and probably put a lot of Dutch hearts to ease until they play England at the time of making this video. Ironically, when he was at AZ Alkmaar, he actually eventually replaced Coop Miners before obviously, ending up at AC Milan. He's had a couple of loan spells at other Dutch teams. He came through, made a bit of a name for himself at AZ Alkmaar, joined AC Milan last season. And I must admit, I'm watching him during the Euros and thinking, where'd they find this guy from? And then when you think about it, you've obviously seen him play in the Champions League. He played, I'm sure he played against Newcastle. They were in the same group against Paris Saint-Germain. It was Newcastle, Paris Saint-Germain, and there's defo another team, Dortmund. It was seen as the group of death. Now, we know Arsenal need a central midfielder. We probably are not going to sign this guy. But I do think his playing style, and there's certain things that, if you allow me to humor you, I would love him at the football club, or would like someone with similarities. You could actually make a case of him being in team of the tournament for Euros, in my opinion. I think him, Fabian Ruiz, Rodri, have actually been three of the better players during the Euros in that position. Kante, of course, that quickly come to mind. In terms of what I like about him, it's actually the first thing is that he's very vocal. He'll stand up to be counted, and anyone that's seen him speak, will get that vibe. And I think when Holland lost to Austria, he was very vocal, and I think he's one of the internal captains in the Dutch setup. I think he's a very intelligent midfielder. He does the basics very well, which I think are a very underrated aspect in today's day and age, where people are more impressed by hitting certain passes and doing a million skills. The basics are very understated, and I think he's very competent. I think he's very consistent, and I think he's got a confidence in what he's doing. I think he's got great link-up play, great understanding of where his teammates are and the areas to find him. I think he's got decent height, standing at 6'1". As you'd imagine for a midfielder, let alone a Dutch midfielder, you'd imagine he'd be a great reader of the game. Sometimes I think he could be slightly more aggressive in 1v1 situations, but he's more of a reader of the game. He'll read things before they've happened. He's almost got a sixth sense in that regards. He's not the most tenacious of midfielders, people, but I wouldn't say, that's an area of concerns. As I said earlier, he began his career with his hometown club, PEC Zol, forgive me for mispronunciation, before he obviously moved on to AZ Alkmaar. Through being at AZ Alkmaar, he spent a time at RKC on loan until the conclusion of the 2019-20 season, in which he then returned to AZ Alkmaar from his loan spell, people, and began to assert himself within the team. And not before too long, skipping a bit ahead, in the summer of 2023, he joined Italian giants AC Milan. He comes from a footballing family. His dad and brother are former footballers / have been footballers. At 25 years of age, people, with 14 Dutch caps, showing the ability to cope with the pressures for playing for a big nation like the Netherlands and playing for a big club like AC Milan. I think he's now ready to take it to a next level. I mean, he's at AC Milan, so he already is there, people. I think he's got great temperament, and I think one underrated aspect is his durability. You'd have to go back to 2021-22 for the last time he actually missed a game, and that was one. In fact, in his debut season in AC Milan, he played 50 times in all comps, people. 36 of those coming in the Italian Serie A. When you've got 50 odd games under your belt for AC Milan, when you've got 102 appearances in the Eredivisie, I think he's entering the peak ages / getting to his prime. And AC Milan did their due diligence, but in theory he'd be a great player, man. I think he's a very mobile central midfielder who wants to get forward. The man himself has described himself as a box-to-box midfielder, and I do think he does and contributes very well in the final third. Maybe not necessarily in terms of goals, but in terms of finding teammates, or when to press opponents, or when to fill certain gaps across the pitch. I think he comes into his own. There's a reason Ronald Koeman described him as blessed with light feet only a few months ago prior to this tournament. He's got fantastic technical level. He makes great runs on and off the ball. He's got very good agility. He's very good on the half turn. He's very good at manipulating space. He's very good against low blocks. He plays with a calmness. He's never rushed. He puts in a great defense defensive shift. And we've all seen, whether it was the goal against Scotland, whether it's performance against Romania, whether it's long range efforts or fantastic passes. He's got a bit of that wow factor about him, people. And he's, prior to obviously the quarterfinals, statistically, he's been one of the most prolific carriers of a football from central midfield. In fact, only 10 central midfielders, people, going into the quarterfinals of this competition carried the ball further up the pitch. And that is a movement of at least 5 meters with the ball, ahead of the last 8 games in the Euros, as stated, people, which at the very least demonstrates and shows that he's very comfortable in possession. When you start to dig a lot deeper, you get to see a lot of what this guy brings to the table. He recorded the most progressive carries of 10 meters or more prior to the quarterfinals, people. Also on that, for context, he's only behind Zielinski, Rodri, and Toni Kroos in that regards. At a point during the tournament, he also ranked as high as 6th among midfielders for average carry distance, which shows the confidence on the ball and the desire to put his country and in general football teams on the front foot, people. He's got elegance, he's got grace, he knows how to hold possession, he knows when to win fouls, he knows when to play with a degree of street smartness. I've got a lot of time for him, man. Besides his offensive skills, he's fairly effective at regaining possession and providing defensive cover. So at 25, it reflects that he is becoming a very well-rounded midfielder. Fairly silky on the ball, very good when receiving the ball very deep and turning past defenders and getting the more creative players into the game. Well, I mean, Arsenal Football Club, we need a great ball carrier, we need a progressor, we need someone that's cultured, and this could be someone inferior in terms of the skill set. What I like, some of you lot will actually remember, he actually has ran rings around Declan Rice prior. He ran rings around him, but hopefully they can become teammates, man. As I said, man, I think he's a typical Dutch player. He's very good in the half spaces. You would see, the line breaking passes and all the graphics that are going on screen now, people, to further illustrate that, people. He shows he can venture forward and find gaps, as stated in the opposition shape. Only 5 players in the Euros have recorded more line breaking passes, to carry on that theme, people, which are defined as passes that split the 2 lines of the opposition setup prior to the quarterfinals. Then his 7. When you look at the 38 of his total such line breaking passes, 29 of those were successful, which means at the time of making this vid, he's the 4th most progressive midfielder in such role during the Euros. Of course, it's generally been, I won't quite say plain sailing for the Netherlands, because I mean it is in the sense of in the knockouts, but I think where you look at the English, French, Dutch, and who else? Well, there's definitely another big nation. They flattered to deceive, but I think the only time he's looked poor was against Austria, when the whole team looked poor, people. When you look at his time in the Serie A, he ranked in the top 10, people, for chances created from open play, passes completed in the final third of the pitch, and through balls, which shows he's very cultured, if I'm honest with you. For me, in conclusion, I don't think we're going to get him, because you'd imagine his price has rocketed up. Again, AC Milan have just got a new manager in Fonseca, and I'm sure he's going to be a key part of their team. And he's basically just joined AC Milan. This is a man that rejected Barcelona to play for AC Milan because he felt that it was a better tactical fit. And he actually felt that playing for Barcelona would limit a lot of his movement. Now, obviously, there's a lot of free-flowing movement and stuff like that with Mikel Arteta, but we also know he's very, he plans things down to a T. He's very meticulous. So could that be a reason, as to beyond the obvious, why we wouldn't get him? But in theory, I would love him at the carpet, and I'd love someone with that skill set. And I mean, what else we got to talk about? So I thought I'd make a video on this. Let me know your thoughts, people. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. God bless you all. Peace.